Hey everyone, welcome to Locked On Lakers for Tuesday. Brian Kamenetsky, Andy Kamenetsky. The Lakers blow out the Thunder on Monday at the Crypt. Was this the best defensive effort of the season? That's next.
You are Locked On Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks to everybody for making Locked On Lakers your first listen of every day, Monday through Friday. No matter how or where you get your podcasts, it's always free. And despite what that one guy on the YouTube channel said on Monday, it is never behind a paywall. If you're paying for this podcast, either on YouTube or the audio version of it, you are getting scammed. A Nigerian prince somewhere is taking your money. Please stop doing that. And over 23,000 subscribers on the YouTube channel, Andy, all of whom are wondering if what we saw on Monday is going to sustain itself because the Lakers played one of their best games of the year. We'll talk about whether or not this was the best defensive game that they've played this season. And after a rough first 5 minutes or so, absolutely dominated the Oklahoma City Thunder. They win 116-104. Plenty to unpack with this one tonight, and we will do that momentarily. Do want to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Look, Austin Reaves played, one of his better games. D'Angelo Russell, 26 points. He was 5 of 11 from three. LeBron had 11 rebounds, 8 assists. But I think at least in terms of contextually, Andy, we asked the question going into the game on Monday, can Anthony Davis bounce back from sort of a disappointing game against Denver? The answer was yes. He was massive physically, really leveraged his size. And a lot of what they were doing offensively was built around his offensive rebounding and him getting to the line and just being disruptive inside for the Lakers.
Yeah, Anthony Davis, 24 points on 7 of 12 shooting. Played just 30 minutes, by the way. So it's a night where he could have piled up more stats if they needed to be out there longer. 11 free throw attempts, made 10 of them, 12 rebounds, 4 in the offensive glass, 4 assists. And side note, it's been a while since AD's actually been dishing the way he had for a while when he was looking like the best passing version of himself. Definitely as a Laker, maybe of his career, 3 blocks and a steal. And it's funny, we talked about, Brian, heading into this game that even though the last 5 minutes or so against Denver were disappointing, that on the whole, if the Lakers played the way they did against Denver for, at the time, the remaining 22 games, good things were more likely to happen than not, because as a whole, they did not play badly against Denver. And then we got into some of the specifics, like you mentioned. They needed a better game from Anthony Davis. They got it. They needed the bench to have an actual pulse and some production. They got it. 14 points from Taurean Prince plus 6 rebounds. Taurean was actually a big part of late in the first quarter helping the Lakers get back on track and erasing what had been, I believe, a double-digit deficit at that point when he came in. Jackson Hayes, only 4 points, but he was really active and disruptive. 6 rebounds, 4 in the offensive glass, 2 assists, a block, and a steal. Spencer Dinwiddie didn't have much in terms of counting stats, but we'll discuss this in a bit. He played a role in Shai Gilgeous-Alexander being really off in this game. Mm-hmm. We said, don't bench D'Lo. Let D'Lo be himself. Have confidence in D'Angelo Russell. He had a great game, like you mentioned. He had a sequence with back-to-back-to-back threes that put the game up, I think, 24.
Each getting like more and more circusy. Like the third one, he basically turned around and threw it like a hook shot over his head. It was crazy.
I retweeted this at Cam Brothers, and I don't remember who originally put it out, so my apologies. But I didn't even notice in the moment because I was just so caught up in the, whoa, what is happening? Before, it was either the second or third three that D'Lo hit. He had passed it off to LeBron, and LeBron immediately passed it back to D'Lo with a look on his face like, dude, you're in the zone. Test this, please.
Do it. Yeah.
Yeah, do it. and D'Lo ended up hitting it. He's raising his arms. LeBron's raising his arms. Everybody's excited. And we said, better job from Darvin Ham. We got that. Solid lineup choices. Darvin, we've talked about, has, in both of our opinion, regressed this season. But I'm not putting those flurry of often insanely ridiculous turnovers. That's not on Darvin. That's on the guys playing. Like, the game started out like LeBron and Reaves and D'Lo had a contest before the game. Who can chug the most Four Locos then play? Like that combination of alcohol and caffeine that got banned because it was really harming people. The starters were wild in general, but those three in particular, I was like, whoa, switch to decaf, fellas. You are all three out of control.
AR was really flying around at the beginning there. I mean, and look, what's funny is it turned into one of his better games of the season. But it's interesting. I think, that especially as the Lakers made their run, because Oklahoma City was up 11-2, then they were up I think 20-8 at one point, and like this looked like it could be one of those games, in part because the Lakers were just throwing the ball all over the court, where this, it absolutely could go the other way from what it did. But once the Lakers got going and once they got this lead, as they tied it up by the end of the first quarter, really pushed the lead out in the second, and then again in the third, which to me was one of the better developments of this game, was that, okay, you play a great second quarter. What are you going to do in the third? Do you let Oklahoma City back in, or do you push it back out? And, the Thunder made a little push, but they never took the lead back. And by the end of the third quarter, the Lakers had expanded a 9-point lead by another 8 points. And so just everything about that, I thought was great. Like, once the first 5 minutes of the game were over, the Lakers really did dominate the rest of it.
They did, but I thought it even took a while before they were truly dominating, because I tweeted out at one point, it was 4:24 left in the half. The Thunder had been held to just 33 points on 28% from the field, 31% from three, which is obviously clamping down. And we are going to talk more about that defense. But they had 14 points off 12 Laker turnovers, which were still happening in the second quarter. So you have almost half of a measly point total coming just off Laker mistakes. And those same turnovers were a big reason that, to that point, the Lakers only had 38 points, because they were just robbing themselves of opportunities to score once they just stopped really throwing the ball around in ways that were just, frankly, irresponsible. Like, they kept up that defense for a while that I think just allowed them to stay in this before they had truly settled down. But once they settled in, man, we mentioned heading into this game, the Lakers have a size advantage that the Thunder are not really equipped to handle. And that size, in a lot of ways, just completely enveloped the Thunder in this game.
Yeah, and it really, a lot of it is Anthony Davis, but LeBron's size at different points, Rui's size at different point, Jackson Hayes' size. The Lakers sort of played big as a group. They won the rebounding battle 55-38. That's obviously somewhat related to the fact that they shot 51% and the Thunder shot 39%. You will generally win the rebounding battle when that happens, but they're not a great
rebounding team anyway.
Right. But they still did it. And, the Lakers have managed to screw up the glass against worse, teams in this one. So it was just, when we come back from the break, we'll talk about the defense and all this stuff, but like, this is why, on a couple levels, and we can get into a few of them, why you can't write off this team. What we saw Monday on a couple levels is why you can't write them off. It would be really nice if they can get in the top six, get out of the play-in, And if they do that, especially, you really can't write them off. And we'll get into it next.
Locked on Lakers brought to you by BetterHelp, and we all need the opportunity sometimes to get things off our chests, big, small items, whatever, certain things they can really get to you. And it's important to let it out, to talk with somebody who is unbiased about your life. And look, we do this show that we hope can be an escape from real life for our listeners, for our viewers. You all love the Lakers. We're all passionate about this team. And there can be a stress release from enjoying a Laker game like tonight, a really decisive win. But we all know that there are more pressing issues in our lives that, I don't care how passionate you are about the Lakers, than the Lakers. And it is, again, really important to have that avenue for dealing with those problems. And for those issues, it can be huge to talk with a professional. I can personally speak to how much talking with a therapist helped my family and I during a really difficult period. And therapy can be different for everyone. And if you're thinking of starting it, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be flexible, suited to your schedule. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA.
Quick reminder, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. So we'll talk about, this issue with the, why you can't write off the Lakers. But, we have mentioned this defense, and Darvin Ham called their first half the best half of defense they've played this season. And I think that's especially true after, the first couple minutes of the game. But even then, their defense wasn't the problem early. It was their offense, giving the ball to the other team. The defensive turnaround, the work that Reaves did on Shai, the work that Dinwiddie came off the bench and did defensively, they were locked in. And they were, the doubles were well timed, the traps were well timed. Everybody was sort of moving, I thought, in as much synchronicity as we've seen from this team in a little while.
Absolutely. I mean, the slippage, even during this period where the Lakers have quietly and sometimes frustratingly eked out a lot of wins, like they've been winning a lot more lately than losing. It just hasn't felt that way because they're not rising in the standings, but the defense had slipped a lot. Tonight was absolutely smothering, and they were, as saying goes, on a string. This was probably Austin Reaves' best defensive game this season. He did the lion's share of guarding SGA, stayed with him really well. Spencer Dinwiddie did a nice job off the bench, often on SGA, and I thought the whole team, when matched up against SGA, they were really effective. I remember like a possession, Rui guarded him into not having an outlet. It led to a turnover, which led to Rui scoring in transition. I thought they did a really good job of bothering SGA without constantly throwing the kitchen sink at him and, doubles, maybe even triples that would leave other shooters open. Like they just did a really good job guarding him with a minimal amount of help. And then I just have some notes of other things that jumped out at me, like D'Angelo Russell had a possession defensively with a strip and then a deflection in the same possession. There was that incredible sequence in the first half where Anthony Davis was matched up against Chet on an island. He just put him in jail, and Chet eventually to pass off to SGA, but he was crowded. It led to a turnover. Jackson Hayes blocked a Chet Holmgren jumper, led to LeBron getting to the rim. Taurean Prince then got a block under the rim. There was a sequence where Spencer Dinwiddie blocked SGA in space, led to a transition layup for him. There was a play where LeBron turned the ball over, but he stayed really active and ended up breaking up a lob attempt on the other end, and that led to a Lakers score. Like, you can find possessions and moments where everybody had terrific work defensively.
Yeah, and I and at the core of this was obviously AD underneath. The Lakers did, again, a very good job on the glass. LeBron was very strong on the glass. AD was strong on the glass. As a deterrent inside, AD was excellent. And this is the type of game that where you would expect him to play well because Oklahoma City's a good matchup for him. But even then, it's still you still got to go out and do it. You still have to be physically imposing. You still have to get out there and play the way that really, frankly, he has for most of the season, and just didn't have that kind of game on Saturday. But I think I don't know if this is the best defensive game they've played all year. Like we're 60 games deep at this point. They've had some good performances. I do think it's the best defensive game they've played since Vanderbilt got hurt again. And it is important because, look, with the news on Monday was Vincent and Vanderbilt will both be evaluated again next week. So we'll get news about something next week. But, we're talking about getting evaluated again. So let's say Vanderbilt's cleared to start doing things. Okay, well, he can get on the floor. You're still talking 2 or 3, at least 2 weeks before he's back, probably a little bit more. So, neither one of those guys are coming back for a while. And the Lakers need to show that they can play high level defense without Vanderbilt available. And I understand the Thunder are a favorable matchup for them. We can try to talk about that before the end of the show, but you still got to go do it. And the Thunder are the best team in the Western Conference. So you play that type, you hold them to under 40%. Sure, they missed some shots, they smoked some layups, whatever. Lakers played good defense.
Yeah, there's no question. I wanted to point out too, because you mentioned the job that LeBron and AD did on the glass, and I'd pointed out Jackson Hayes as well. Worth noting too, D'Angelo Russell and Austin Reaves both had 6 rebounds. Like, that's really good work from the guards. I'd mentioned before Taurean Prince, who is not a particularly good rebounder for his size. He had 6 himself. Like, everybody needs to contribute if you're going to end up making that happen. And a lot of those guys too, by the way, they got those rebounds in, relatively limited minutes, which is great. AD played 30 minutes. LeBron played 31. That's really important heading into this game on Wednesday against Sacramento, who, by the way, lost tonight. Thank you, Chicago Bulls, and former Laker Alex Caruso and former Laker Andre Drummond, if he happened to play in this game, doing the Lakers a solid. They're now just 1.5 games behind the Kings, who are in the 7 spot.
The Mavericks have hit a bit of a lull as well after really being just absolutely red hot after the trade deadline. So now you look at it, and Phoenix has 35 wins. Sacramento, Dallas, and the Lakers have 34. The Lakers are a little bit of a disadvantage because they have the most losses of any of the playoff teams. They have 29 losses. Generally speaking, you want to look at the loss column because that's the one, you can't get those games back. But either way, the Lakers are 3 games out of the 5. Like, it's the downside to the schedule is it's really hard. The upside is you're playing all these teams you're chasing. So you have 2 games against Sacramento coming up. You win those, you're ahead of them probably in the standings. You have more games against New Orleans. You win those, you can catch them. You have more games, against these teams. And so
you already have the tiebreaker on Phoenix.
And now they have it on Oklahoma City if they can really rally and catch the Thunder at the top of the conference.
Let's walk before we run.
Yeah, but we can get into this thing about the matchup because this is a 3-1 series win for the Lakers, and they've, other than the game where they just got throttled in Oklahoma City, which, if I remember correctly, was the second night of a back-to-back for the Lakers, correct? I think it was.
Might have been. I have to look.
I believe it was that night, but I mean, if it wasn't, woof. This stuff when we get back, again, you can't write this team off because they're capable of playing like this, and weird stuff is going to happen in the Western Conference that is going to belie the seeding. I am fairly confident about that. So we'll get into it next.
Locked On Lakers brought to you by FanDuel, and you can get buckets with your first bet on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's it, just $5. And if you win, $150 in bonus bets to do with as you wish. And you can bet on all your favorite NBA players, favorite teams, quick bets, live same-game parlays, exclusive props, and obviously the Lakers, whether or not they can get back to the Western Conference Finals, whether they can get to the finals, whether they can win it all, Anthony Davis for Defensive Player of the Year, LeBron for MVP, so on and so forth. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and shoot your shot. FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NBA.
So we were just talking about the standings here, Andy, and like who is where and what's going on. And look, you know, the teams that are in the top 10 are fairly well set. Utah and Houston have faded really hard. Golden State, who is now the 10, at least, for a day or so, however it works, is a full 5 games ahead of Utah and 6 ahead of Houston. The Lakers are 5.5 ahead of Utah and 6.5 ahead of Houston. They would have to collapse. Not only would those teams have to start racking up wins faster than they're capable, the Lakers, the Warriors, the Mavericks just have to completely collapse. So the 10 teams are pretty much set. How this playoff shakes out, though, is going to be almost entirely dependent on the order, because as you go through it, there are too many good teams at the bottom of the bracket. The way the Warriors are playing, the way the Lakers are starting to win a lot more, and if obviously they go in the playoffs on a roll, we saw last year what could happen. The Mavericks have the potential to be very good. The Kings struggling now, but still have the potential to be very good. The Suns have who they've got. Like, there are no walkovers in the conference, and matchups are going to dictate much more than seeding and all that kind of stuff, how the playoffs play out. I mean, there are going to be some low seeds that beat high seeds if these things shake out with unfavorable matchups for the wrong team. And I could include Oklahoma City there in a matchup with the Lakers. Like, that's clearly one that helps the Lakers out.
Yeah, it would not be shocking. First of all, just to clarify, you are correct. That one blowout loss was in OKC on the second end of a back-to-back. They had played Detroit the night before, but
that'll wear you out.
Oh yeah, absolutely. To the point though that you were making, the Lakers, as much as this team has been a frustrating experience at times, they have a winning record within the Western Conference, and the Western Conference has been extremely good and competitive all year. And I know I've mentioned it before on this show when we've talked about this matchup question. Like, Oklahoma City on balance has clearly been a better team than the Lakers this year. And if you asked me which team do I think has a better odds of going further in the playoffs, if it's just random team versus random team, random team versus random team, I would probably pick the Thunder, because they've been better and they're going to have home court advantage. And if you've ever been in that building, it's insane. Like, it is a really difficult place to win. But that being said, if the Lakers play the Thunder in the series, I feel really good about the Lakers being able to knock them out, because we've seen a bad matchup for OKC for reasons that make a lot of sense. And then you just start thinking about other potential matchups throughout the West. Denver, for example, it has become abundantly clear the Lakers are going to need some help dealing with Denver. This is clearly a god-awful matchup. To be fair, it may be a bad matchup for everybody in the damn league, but it is a bad matchup for the Lakers. They've played Minnesota credibly this year, often while shorthanded. Assuming they've got, if nothing else, like Jared Vanderbilt back, maybe Christian Wood, like, they've got some of the size to match up with Minnesota's size, and they sometimes have difficulty closing out, and there's going to be a lot of pressure on Minnesota in the playoffs. Does that mean I would favor the Lakers? No, but I look at that matchup and say that's not a bad one for them. They've clearly, if somehow it shook out this way, they clearly play Phoenix really well. You know, like it's going to be really interesting to see how these different matchups work out. But other than Denver, there's nobody so far in the West that you look at and just say, okay, I really don't know how the Lakers could beat them in a series.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I agree with you. And like, it's not the I would pick the
Not
Thunder
that they'd
to
be
win
favored, but just I can't picture them winning.
I would pick the Thunder to win because again, that home, if you've not experienced it, that building in the playoffs is bananas.
Yes.
And I
Yes,
do not,
it is.
and I do not feel like that this Thunder team is one of these teams that's going to freak out in the playoffs because they're too young and they've never been there. No, they'll be fine. But that said, it's not a question of like, would you pick the Lakers to win? Is this like what you would normally see in a 1-8 or a 2-7 or something like that? The answer is absolutely not. It's just you talked a lot about this last year, Andy. Like the thing about the Lakers is if they get to a place where they either get out of the play-in or they're, really just get into it because it's not like this year they're in the top 10. They're 5 games over 500 again. And while it's disappointing, it's still like they're going to be in the postseason festivities and whatever you want to call the play-in, if you call the playoffs or not. They're going to be in the top 10.
On the side stage, like at Lollapalooza or Coachella,
however you want to frame it. Last year we weren't quite
Fire
sure.
Festival,
and they had to be playing well, but definitionally had to be playing well to get there. And it's going to be kind of like that now. If the Lakers are 6 or 7 games over 500, 8 games over 500 when the playoffs roll around, with the schedule that they've played, that means they've played pretty well. That's not a terrible record. And the gap between that group of Lakers, particularly, and I am in my head factoring in like, if they're going to make a long run, you probably do need to get Jared Vanderbilt back.
Yes. Oh yeah.
I mean, it can probably be done without it, but they need the depth. They need the defense.
I actually think they will struggle to have a long playoff run without Vanderbilt.
Right. I mean, by probably, I mean like there is a chance that it could still happen, but their chances are.
I mean, if you want to pull out the Dumb and Dumber line, sure, right. But I
kind of what I'm getting at.
I don't believe in it. No.
And that makes a difference between defending like over a series versus over a single game. But like if they did get him back and he was a useful player, and if they got Christian Wood back and he was in decent form at that moment, now you've got a little bit more bench depth. I can see it. Like you can't look. Anthony Davis is capable of playing as well as anybody in the conference. He has played at an MVP caliber all season long. Everybody has off games. He's had a couple here and there. Overall, he has been MVP caliber.
Except against Jokic, who we've already decided they can't beat that team anyway.
They're not winning that series. They could just play it on.
In that sense, who cares?
They could just play it on 2K and save us all the trouble, apparently. But and LeBron, this version, we've gotten to the point of the season where this version of LeBron, we're past some of the kind of pacing himself LeBron, and the playoff version of LeBron is still pretty damn close to just plain LeBron. Like
I can tell you now, there's nobody in the league who wants to see that version of LeBron. He could be 50 and he'd still scare you.
Yeah. And so like this sort of thing it's not out of the question. And that's what makes this so interesting is just, and it's not just for the Lakers, but across like, you give me a healthy Clippers team with all three of their big three, and a healthy Zubats and all these other things. I don't love that matchup for the Lakers at all. I know the Lakers have had good success against the Clippers this season. I do not like that matchup for the Lakers. So, it's hit and miss. But man, when they play like this, Andy, it is this, it's Michael Corleone, in The Godfather. Like, they pull you back in. That's just how this is.
Godfather Part 3, just to make sure everybody knows exactly
right.
what you're referring to. Also, just letting everyone know, just in case you weren't familiar with the schedule, how deep this every single game matters thing and how much things could be fluid. The Lakers' last game of the season is against the Pelicans, a team that very well could be, if the Lakers start winning some games, they could be close to the Pelicans. Pelicans are not far ahead of them right now. Like that, there's just a lot. If nothing else, the Pelicans will likely have something to play for in that last game. Like it would be surprising to me if they were locked into a seed.
That's true.
At that point.
It's a really. I'm just excited. I want everyone, and I mean the Lakers. I want everyone to stay healthy, because if this happens, I compare it to the Eastern Conference. You want the Knicks to get healthy. The Sixers, obviously, if Joel Embiid can come back, become much more like the Sixers again. But as I like Orlando, they're not going to win anything. I like Indiana. They're up and coming. They're not going to threaten in the Eastern Conference this year. Miami is obviously Miami. You don't write them off. There's some interesting series in there. But the 10 seed right now in the East is Atlanta. They've won 26 games. The 9 seed is Chicago. They've won 29 games. Those are not good teams.
Including one over the Kings, baby.
So, the Celtics are light years better. The Bucks are light years better. I mean, Cleveland is a very good team, but the top of that go to the West, man. The Warriors, who have not been great all year and now really are playing well again. The Lakers, a Luka and Kyrie led Mavericks team, of the threesome that they've got in Phoenix. The Pelicans, these are heavyweights that are going to be throwing blows at each other, and it's going to be fun to watch. You just want everyone to get there intact, especially LeBron James and Anthony Davis. All right, so lots to talk about this week before the Lakers continue to play another top team over the course of their now 5 more before they see the Hawks in a week or two. Locked On Lakers on YouTube is where you can go hang out again. Please do not be paying for this show. You're getting scammed if you are. We will see everyone tomorrow.